Hey yo, welcome back to episode 2.
Episode 2.
I'm Morgan.
I'm Casey.
And we are two halves of a whole idiot podcast. So we talk about pretty much whatever we want. If you're listening now, hopefully you listened to our first episode.
If not, that's cool too.
Yeah. I mean, we cover a variety of things. Last episode we covered a conspiracy theory and a lore. And I think this week I'm doing an esoteric myth.
I love myths. Everybody loves a good myth.
Did you ever watch Mythbusters?
I did.
Yeah, I used to really like Mythbusters.
I watched that one a lot. I love a good myth, and I love busting good myths. But...
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to bust this one, too. So.
Busted. Wide open. And I'm covering a little bit of true crime tonight. Nice. Yeah. Some somewhat local true crime.
Okay.
This is a juicy one.
Yeah.
Like big juicy. Yeah.
Just spill the tea.
There's so much tea.
Oh my god.
There's a lot of tea. It's a good one. I'm excited.
And I also want to say happy 2025.
We made it.
We made it. It's New Year's Day here. So we're just kind of hanging out.
Whenever you're listening to this, just whatever has happened in the world between now and
yeah, hopefully
and
literally nothing.
Just take a walk back in time and just relive this moment with us.
It's a holiday. We're just chilling. So anyway, do you want to go first this week?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
I'll go first. 100%. Mine's a little bit of a long read too, so we'll get it out of the way here.
Well, mine's kind of a log read too.
Well, then buckle up.
But yeah. Get comfortable. Get something to drink.
Yeah, grab a little bev or a little snack and
snack.
Kick on back and, put on your favorite lounging jacket and put the fireplace on and
yeah, that's I mean, this fireplace is on.
I'm in sweatpants. Doing. Yeah.
I have a little blanket that's got little doggies on it, wrapped around me like a babushka,
and I have my emotional support pillow here
and corn t-shirt
that I'm also and corn t-shirt. Yeah,
not the vegetable.
Not it could be.
Oh, maybe
it's not. Anyway, I'm stalling at this point, so I'm gonna get into it.
Get into it, yeah.
So tonight's read for me is a combination of a bit of my own writing as well as some excerpts from some other articles and postings that I found online as well, just kind of blended together to flesh this out. I tried to do as much digging on it on my own as I could, but I did stumble across a couple pieces already written that really kind of helped bridge the gaps in those areas where I was struggle busting it a bit. So shout out to the subreddit Unsolved Mysteries for helping me piece this together, because it was toward the end I was getting a little cooked, so it helped bring it all together. But tonight I'm going to be talking about the Circleville letters.
Nice.
Yes, the Circleville letters. And this is something that I only recently discovered, completely honest, a couple months ago, which came as a surprise to me because I was born and raised in Ohio and even spent a fair bit of time in Circleville in my early 20s. And I'd never heard of this before. So
do you think the community tried to keep it under wraps or something?
I don't know. It almost feels that way. Mm-hmm. Because I never lived in Circleville, but I knew people that did, and this
nobody ever said anything.
Never came up once. And I hadn't even seen anything about it on any true crime shows or podcasts or anything like that until super recently.
Okay.
And that I don't know, that was just super weird to me. So of course I dug in. I'm like, I have to know all about this. So this one's pretty cool. So if you're not familiar, you are in for a doozy. So if you're not familiar, Circleville, Ohio, it's situated about 35 miles south of the state capital of Columbus on State Route 23. And it's got a population of about 14,000 people, give or take over the years, but ballpark about 14,000. There's really not a lot of things that stand out about Circleville. It's not
it's kind of just a small town, right?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Circleville, but there's nothing extra remarkable about it. But decent, good sized town, nice people, cool stuff. It got its name, Circleville, because quite literally when the town was originally formed, it was just in the shape of a circle. There's not much more to it than that.
So creative.
I didn't even know this either, because there's so many places around that have interesting names, but this was just quite literally when they built the town, they just made it in the shape of a Circleville, and I guess they didn't think too hard when they were trying to name the place.
Well, it is what it is, guys.
Yeah, let's just call it like we see it.
Yeah.
But the original layout of it, obviously it's not shaped like a circle now, which is also a hilarious part that we'll get to. But the city courthouse sat in the middle, and then the surrounding streets kind of were like rings around the city center. So that's how it's got its name. But Circleception, exactly. Crop Circleville. Ooh, that's going to be a different episode. So from the town's early formation, from the 1800s to the mid 1830s, the townspeople got pretty dissatisfied with the circular layout. So they seemed like a great idea on paper, but it just was not working. I read some places that due to kind of everything happening right in the middle of town with all of like the livestock and animals and stuff like that, it was just kind of like messy, dirty, like not a good look for your city center.
Yeah.
To have a bunch of, livestock, the cow poop, just in front of the courthouse. It's not the vibe.
That would not be my favorite place to visit.
No, and this was supposed to be like the center point of town. So they decided that they were going to get together and figure out a new layout for the town. And the organization that came up with the new arrangement from the town, I shit you not, was called the Circleville Squaring Company.
Okay.
Hey, shout out to Circleville for not overthinking anything.
They really did.
They did not. They didn't give a second thought to any of this. So they ended up changing the layout. The circle layout only lasted, I don't know exactly how long, but very early. They're like, this seemed cool, but we're not digging it. So they changed it up. And of course, now it's just laid out like your very standard type of place. Circleville, here's a cool thing about Circleville, though. It is the annual destination for many during the fall season and is the home for the historic Circleville Pumpkin Show. Have you been to the Pumpkin Show?
I have not been to the Pumpkin Show.
Oh, the Pumpkin Show is super cool.
And I lived in Columbus for like 12 years and I never went. I heard the traffic was atrocious and I just kind of like stayed away. But
yeah, that's understandable. It's not like there's a lot of ways in and out of town. When you're on 23, kind of the only way to get to Columbus is to go through Circleville. So when it's Pumpkin Show time, the traffic is pretty nuts. And this blew my mind too. I didn't know this. I knew a lot of people showed up to the Pumpkin Show, but I didn't know it was this many. But the Pumpkin Shows go back to 1909 was the first one. And it takes place over the course of 4 days on the third weekend of every October. And it attracts almost 500,000 people every year. 400,000 people on average.
In a town of 14,000.
Yes.
Sheesh.
Big sheesh. Yeah, they average about 100,000 people every day for the Pumpkin Show. So there's a lot of homies out there.
That's a lot of folks. Stuff. Like, yeah, I mean, I do want to go.
I can't even necessarily. I mean, I think like the Dallas Cowboys football stadium is like, I don't even know if that's 100,000 people.
The Ohio State Horseshoe Stadium is like. I mean, I know, like, games I've been at and stuff, they say the amount of people that are there, and it's like 110,000, I think. So like a whole football stadium. All
of them.
At a pumpkin
just
show.
In little Circleville.
I just imagine having to be, like, elbows out, like, in the metal pit, but just to get a pumpkin donut.
Right.
Like.
Well, there's lots of pumpkin donuts. If it can be eaten and it's made of pumpkin, it is there.
I mean, it's believe me, I want to go. I am a slut for pumpkin everything.
And the last time I was there, now I will say it's probably been about 10 to 12 years ago was the last time I was there, but there was also a pig calling competition that was exactly what you want it to be. It was great.
Oh my gosh.
It was incredible. But super cool. It's a great time of year. The weather's usually awesome. The food's great. They have a competition where they grow pumpkins like the size of small cars. It's incredible, but it's very cool. If you're in Ohio around the end of October, check out the Circleville Pumpkin Show. This is not an ad.
We will definitely add it to the list because we got to go
definitely.
to Flatwoods after last week's episode, and then now we'll add that.
Yeah, we should just like piece together a little map of the different places we need to go.
Our little podcast map.
Yeah, so that was the big draw of Circleville starting in the early 1900s. But our story takes place in the mid 1970s. So, as cheerful, chipper, jolly good pumpkin time as Circleville sounds, in the mid 70s there was some bad stuff going down.
Shit get dark.
And that is, it got real dark real quick. And that is the topic of today's story. So the entirety of this story also, mind you, stretches out almost 2 decades. This is not just like a quick, like, oh, remember summer of 77? That was crazy. No, like this spans a lot of time. So in the mid 1970s, a series of mysterious anonymous letters started pouring into the mailboxes of the town's residents. The envelopes had no return address, were postmarked from the neighboring capital city of Columbus, Ohio, about 30 miles away, and the contents of the letters were wild. They contained extremely threatening accusations of everything from infidelity, domestic violence, embezzlement, and even murder. And it was all at the same time, and they were going to everybody. Just these crazy, wild, anonymous letters showing up in people's mailboxes. Everyone from just the regular people, city officials, like somebody was out to get literally everyone. So,
well, do you want to pause and get a drink?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I'll just give it a second so I can edit it out.
Okay.
So the simple and even mindless act of walking out to your mailbox, something you do every day without really thinking about it, turned into an absolute nightmare for the residents of Circleville. And our story focuses on the story of a local school bus driver named Mary Gillespie. So one morning, Mary goes out to her mailbox, grabs the mail, and opens it up to find an anonymous letter. And the letter is accusing her of having an affair with Westfall High School Superintendent Gordon Massey. So in this letter, the writer implied that they've been watching Gillespie and her children, and that, quote, everyone concerned had been notified and everything will end soon.
Ugh.
Like, can you imagine? You're just like, like telephone bill, water bill, advertisement, magazine,
card from my aunt,
blackmail.
Oh my god.
Like what?
That's not very demure.
Not at all.
It's not mindful.
Not mindful. Not cutesy.
Not cutesy.
All bad. Super bad.
Straight up.
So,
oh my god. If I got that, I would probably piss myself.
Honestly.
Regardless if it was real or not, I would just probably piss my pants.
100%. Like, just from the absurdity of it.
Yeah. Like, how fucking dare you? And then I pee myself.
even just the other day, I don't know how, it wasn't relevant at all. I got just a weird, random Facebook message from someone I don't know. Okay. And the contents of it, it was like 3 or 4 words. It was almost like someone meant to send it to someone else, but it somehow went to me. Zero context. None of it made any sense. And even just the absurdity of that, like, threw me off for like an hour. Like, I was just like, what the hell is that? Like,
I don't know.
So,
Facebook settings are weird because
they're really weird.
Tried to make my profile somewhat private, but I'm also an artist, so like I post some public posts, and I'm not sure if you can actually message me or not.
I don't know.
So,
I was not friends with this person, and the message didn't seem like it was at all directed at me in any way. It's just like I caught a random message from like mid conversation with someone else, and it showed up in my inbox.
Maybe it was a glitch in the Zuckerberg matrix.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's super weird. But even just that, I just sat staring at my phone for like what felt like an eternity, just trying to make sense of what was happening. And there was no negative effect. Like, it literally meant nothing, but I was just like, it felt so weird.
Uncanny Valley.
It felt so weird. Like, I was just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was super weird. So I'm only imagining what poor Mary Gillespie felt when she opens up her mail and opens up just an absolute nuke
I went tits
of an
up,
accusation. Yeah. So obviously, Mary goes inside and immediately shows her husband, Ron Gillespie, and cleared the air with him, denying any claims of the accusations that were in the letter of having. So she's a school bus driver.
Right.
So the letter is accusing her of having an affair with the school's superintendent,
Juicy.
Gordon Massey. Super juicy. Very scandalous.
Mm-hmm.
So not long after Mary received her letter, her husband Ron received a letter, and he was demanded by the letter writer to inform the West Falls School Board of his wife's alleged affair with Gordon Massey. So, of course, they didn't, because they were both in agreement that nothing was happening.
Yeah.
So they didn't report anything. There's nothing to report.
Right,
so
like, this isn't true. So
this is
why
just
would
a
we
crazy
come forward
person.
with
Yeah,
this?
super weird. Exactly. Well, this did not make the letter writer very happy, because not long after they received another threatening letter stating, "You've had 2 weeks and have done nothing. Make Mary admit the truth and inform the school board." So not only are they just getting these deranged, crazy, accusatory letters, someone is paying attention and watching them.
Someone is literally out for blood.
Yeah, so that's super freaky. They're being watched, they're being observed, and just these outlandish accusations
Blackmailed
are
for something they didn't even do.
So they continued to receive more letters, and the letters started to threaten their children.
Not the kids.
The kids. Yep. The writer's demands were not being met, started threatening the children, and these included death threats against their youngest daughter, saying, "It's your daughter's turn to pay for what you've done. I shall come out there and put a bullet in that little girl's head."
That is big
Like,
fucked up.
this is, the gas pedal is to the floor right now on this. Big time. I can't imagine. Like, how would you even react to that? Like, how do you...
I would not come out of my house ever again.
Because at this point, you have to start taking it seriously. Like,
Yes.
It's not just, oh, this is super weird, like someone's playing a prank. Like, now we're involving death threats to their young daughter.
But, like, imagine how this would have been handled now versus then. Because, like, in the 70s, they didn't have security cameras, did they? Other than, like,
I mean...
probably some public CCTV stuff, maybe?
I mean, businesses and stuff.
But not like...
I really don't know, but it's not like today where you just have, like, everybody's got a ring light, everybody's got a smartphone,
doorbell,
dash cams, like, they're everywhere now, which is kind of weird now that you think about it. But for security reasons...
But if someone, like, in today's world, like, if this was happening and somebody was really spying, like, you'd know. Like, you'd be able to see them
there
at
would
some
be
point.
some way to figure it out.
So, yeah, if I was in that time and her then, I would just probably hole up in my house forever.
100%. But Mary was a school bus driver, and in addition to the letters, she started discovering very crude and vulgar signs posted up around the town along her bus route. And these contained offensive and even explicit references to the alleged affair between Mary and Gordon Massey, and things involving their young daughter, who had also been threatened to be killed.
That is so sad.
Yeah. So Ron, having none of this and trying to protect and look out for his family, he would leave for work like hours early and go drive around town trying to find these signs and take them down so Mary didn't have to see them, or anyone else for that matter, but especially his wife.
What a supportive partner.
100%. Doing the right thing. But unfortunately, for every sign that Ron took down, another one would go up soon after. Yeah. So someone or someone's was being just absolutely ruthless with this.
Yeesh.
But the letters weren't just arriving in the Gillespie's mailbox. The letters accusing Superintendent Massey were showing up all over town. Newspapers were getting these letters, elected officials even. Someone wanted to take Massey down, and sounded like they were looking to do whatever they had to make that happen, including all of this other ridiculous, like, terrible, awful stuff.
At first, I kind of thought, I mean, they wanted to take Mary and Ron down, but I think it's maybe Massey. I'm not sure.
That's, from what I've gathered, that seems to be the plot here, is that ultimately, it seems that someone wanted to take down Massey.
And they were just cards in the deck
and
to
they
get
were
him.
just dragging whoever else they needed to make that happen.
Damn.
As awful as it is. So, like, they were getting... Like, the writer was being awful toward the Gillespies to try to coax them...
into taking him out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, just... what kind of person would do this? This is insane.
Complete and total psychopath,
this is wild.
probably.
And think about all the time, too. It gets wilder, though. So, after this, the Gillespies decide that they obviously have to try to figure out who could possibly be doing this. From an early point, Mary suspected that the letters could have been sent from David Longberry. So David was a fellow bus driver who had previously expressed having a romantic interest in Mary, which she had rejected. So concerned for her and her family's safety, Mary reached out to her husband, Ron, his sister, Karen, and her husband, which was their brother-in-law, Paul Freshour. And they just kind of looked to them for some reassurance, kind of to help them sort out what's going on with it, just to get some extra brains involved here to try to get to the bottom of this. Because obviously, as most people would, up until this point, the Gillespies were keeping the letters a very close secret. And at this point in time, as far as we know, Ron's sister and the brother-in-law were the only other people that knew about them directly. But I think unbeknownst to them, this was happening all over town.
But people just were not coming forward about it.
Would you?
No. Like I said, I would pee my pants, probably go tits up, lock myself in my house. What else would I do? Oh, geez. I mean, this would not go well.
It sounds like everything that Mary and Ron are doing.
Yes.
So they got Karen and Paul Freshour in on it to try to help them sort it out. So after deliberating about who the culprit may be, the four of them collectively landed on David Longberry, the coworker, as the culprit. It just made the most sense. The things lined
Low-hanging
up.
fruit, honestly.
There's motive, you know, it kind of all came together. So the four of them, assuming that David was the writer, they decided to send him a letter of their own. So the letter informed David that they knew him to be the writer of the accusatory letters, demanding that he stop immediately. And much to their surprise and relief, it worked. So as far as they knew,
it was him.
They squashed the beef, and that was going to be the end of it. So they're...
But wait, you said 2 decades, though. No way this is the end of it.
Well, we got a lot left to go here.
Okay.
So after sending the letter to David and the accusatory letter stopped, things kind of got back to normal for the Gillespies. They caught their proverbial breath, trying to go back to their lives as normal, and the letters started again.
Damn, I knew it.
No surprise, right?
No.
It couldn't be that easy. Couldn't be that easy. So on August 19th, 1977, the Gillespies received a disturbing phone call. So we've gone from letters to just calling the house. So Ron answered the phone and was greeted on the other end of the line by someone claiming to be the author of the letters. Little is really known about what they talked about during the phone conversation, but whatever it was enough to make Ron just piping mad. And he stormed out of the house, grabbed a gun, and got into his pickup truck and ripped off into the night. But Ron Gillespie would be found dead less than an hour later.
That is no time at all.
No. Like, he picks up, goes, and then...
That's it.
That's
his demise.
Police found Ron's pickup truck smashed into a tree headed northwest on 5 Points Pike, which is a road that branches up out of town.
Okay.
His truck had failed to make a sharp right turn and careened onto the left side of the road, impacting a tree. Ron was pronounced dead on arrival at Berger Hospital from massive internal injuries, according to reports. And if you're listening to this and you're interested at all, and you're into some kind of morbid, macabre kind of stuff, the full report, including the police write-up, death certificate, and photos of the crash scene, the photos aren't graphic, but it is pictures of his truck that he
mangled,
died in. Yeah, and it makes sense. It's pretty bad. But all those can be found online. Super interesting, which I feel like in a lot of these, you don't really see all of that often. It's someone compiled all the documents regarding Ron's death and put them in there, and there's some really interesting things in there. So upon further investigation, they found something really interesting when they were checking out the scene of the crash. So found lying underneath Ron's body was his .22 caliber revolver, and it's looking like before he crashed his truck and died, he had fired a shot from that gun. So whether we don't know who he shot at or what it was, but for whatever reason, there was that phone call. He storms out, grabs his gun, and before he's dead, he shot at someone.
That sounds like the plot of a movie.
It really does. This whole thing.
How has this not been made into a movie yet?
I don't know.
I think it would be good.
I think it would be too. So as news spread about Ron's death, the residents of Circleville began forming their own theories as to why he met such an untimely demise. A lot of people speculated, just kind of like we have. The letter writer threatened to expose Mary's alleged affair, and Ron went out just to put an end to it, just to do something about it. I mean, go Ron, you know? Like, he's like, I've had enough.
Yep. It ends here.
Yeah, exactly. So no one really knows why he did what he did. Did the caller tell him to meet somewhere and like, hey, we'll settle this, kind of thing? Did Ron somehow like cross paths with him and started chasing him? That's why he was like ripping around town in his truck and ended up crashing. No one really knows, which just adds to the mystery. No one knows what they said on the phone, and no one knows how he ended up crashing his truck, which I kind of love stuff like that, though. As dark as this is, like, a man lost his life, but so much mystery around it, and no one's ever going to know.
Yeah, and like back then, like, it would have been a landline, obviously,
yeah.
And then, like, any chance, like, he was, like, drinking it all, or?
Yeah, so that was another super interesting thing that came up here. So when they ran the toxicology report, when he got to the medical examiner's office, his blood alcohol level was 1.5 times the legal limit. So Ron was...
He was sauced.
Sauced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was white girl wasted.
But the thing about this is Ron was not known to be a drinker.
Yeah.
Like that, this is very out of character for Ron. It's not like, oh, like he just has a couple with dinner or something like that. Like,
sure.
As far as everyone knew, you ask around town, like,
no,
Ron Gillespie does not drink.
Well, I have a sneaking suspicion that it was probably being used as a coping mechanism for all the stress he was
100%. I mean, imagine all the stuff that he's going through and trying to protect his family and probably feeling like he can't.
Right.
Like, I don't blame him for picking up the bottle.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I'd be out of my mind. Like, he's sleep deprived because he's waking up early, trying to drive around and take down all these horrific signs that are just absolutely smearing his wife and his family and his daughters. And yeah, they were all going through it. So even though it's like out of character, I don't think it's like beyond explanation that Ron was drunk, but it did also not contribute, or rather it probably did contribute to how he ended up dying. Because obviously you rip around town at, double the legal limit, also with a gun. It's just, it's not a good look.
Not a good look.
So Ron's brother-in-law, Paul Freshour, was 100% insistent that Ron's death had not been an accident. His blood alcohol level, the gun they found under his body with the spent round, to Paul, this all screamed suspicious. So at the time of the discovery of Ron's body, the sheriff, Dwight Radcliffe, he actually suspected foul play as well, but this was before they knew Ron was drunk. So they found his body, they found the crash truck, they found the gun, they saw that he'd fired a bullet, okay, like something happened here and we need to look into it.
Fishy for real.
So the sheriff even detained someone who they deemed a person of interest and interrogated them, submitted them to a polygraph test. Like, they were bound, determined to figure out who did this. Unfortunately, the person who they arrested, that name was never released. But we do know that they passed the lie detector test. But here's where things get interesting. As gung-ho as the sheriff was about trying to figure out what happened to Ron, as soon as the medical examiner reported that he was heavily intoxicated, he just threw up his hands and called it a drunk driving accident.
So that's kind of messed up in my opinion, because
extremely messed up.
Especially like in a small town, everybody knows everybody. Like this sheriff probably like knew him and his family.
It would be not unreasonable to assume that. Yeah.
And then to be like, for it to be so fishy and suspicious, and then the toxicology report comes back and there's alcohol involved, and he's like, well, right? That's it.
We're going to catch this guy. We're going to find out who did this. Right. Get in here. We're going to grill you all these questions. And it's like, oops, he was drunk.
Yeah.
It's super suspicious.
That is very sus.
Super sus. So, as it turns out, Sheriff Radcliffe had a very good reason to wrap up the case of Ron's death very quickly. Because, and this will probably come as no shock to any of you, he was up for an election. He was up to be elected president of the National Sheriff's Association. And Dwight Radcliffe, having a town rattled in fear by the letter writer and a possible unsolved murder on his hands, does not look good when you're up for election.
It really doesn't.
So there's strong belief that was his motive to really just kind of wrap it up and call it, so he could be done with it.
That's pretty gross.
That's extremely selfish and fucked up.
Yeah,
that's really fucked up.
Like, I don't know. I'm an empath. It sounds like this guy probably isn't. I don't know.
I don't know if I can make that judgment call, but it's not looking too good for Sheriff Radcliffe. Oh man, he just kind of called it there. It's like, all right, well, I guess he was drunk. Like, let's move on and win this election, baby. But the letter writer took notice of this and determined to make the residents of Circleville take notice of this as well. Even the letter writer accused Sheriff Radcliffe of covering up Ron's death. Like,
even the letter
writer wrote letters saying that he was covering this up.
So clearly, like, it doesn't get lower than that.
Even, not only are the people of the town, the guy like accusing you of covering it up, the guy who is harassing the people of the town is accusing you of a cover up. I always think of stories like this in written form or narrative form like this, because we're just getting a lot of like the main points, but just like put yourself in that situation. Like, if things are dramatic enough that they're being written in this fashion, imagine what it was like living that.
It would be hell on earth, I bet.
Absolute bonkers.
Paranoia, like, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so at this point, the letter writer he's really stepping things up, and he really starts to go on a rampage. So not only does he accuse Sheriff Radcliffe of a huge cover-up behind Ron's death, he even went as far as to accuse the medical examiner, Dr. Carroll, of sexually abusing young children. He is pulling out the stops. Yeah.
Was there any truth behind that?
We're going to get to that.
Oh, God.
We're going to get to that. But at the time, he's just going absolutely crazy. Like, this guy is on a mission. He's
pulling all the straws.
He is. He is on a mission to bring the town of Circleville to its knees, and it is working. As the weeks went on and following Ron's death, Paul Freshour continued to insist that his death had been a murder, and he even petitioned the FBI to get involved. So he's going all the way to the top. He did not believe for a second that Ron died in a drunk driving accident, and he was convinced that the local law enforcement was covering it up. So some time has passed on, and Mary, grieving the death of her husband, battling all this other stuff that's going on with these crazy letters and the town just being an absolute mess, she eventually returned to her bus route, but things did not go well. The signs along her bus route began to appear again, and this time they're even more vulgar, more disgusting than before. I'm not going to go into the complete details on our podcast here about what the signs contained, but there were some very disturbing, graphic, disgusting things posted on these signs, and these were just up all over town. These were just showing up all over town. On February 7th, 1978, just 6 months after the death of her husband Ron, Mary was driving her bus route when she saw something that literally stopped her in her tracks. So there, posted on a fence post along the road, was a sign, but this one was not like the ones that she had seen before. The sign contained a handwritten message that made explicit and obscene remarks about Mary's 12-year-old daughter. Having absolutely none of this, Mary stopped her bus and got out to take down the disgusting sign. But when she went to remove it, she noticed something strange. Attached to the sign was a piece of twine, and at the end of that twine, it attached to a box that was also mounted to the fence post. So Mary was able to remove both of these, and she took the sign and the box home with her. Mary attempted to open the box, but wasn't successful. So she ended up taking the box and the sign to the sheriff's office, ironically enough, but still the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
The same people who are allegedly covering up the death of her husband. But what other options does she have at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't, like, who else does she have, it sounds like.
So the sheriff's office takes a look at the box, and they are able to get the box open. But what they found inside was absolutely nuts. Inside the box was a loaded pistol. And attached to the trigger was the piece of twine. The twine that was attached to the sign.
Oh my God.
On the fence post.
So if she would have pulled, she would have shot herself.
Yeah. The box was reported to have been mounted at chest height. So if Mary pulled the sign and wasn't careful with it, yeah, she would have been shot point blank.
Yep.
So this was a clear attempt on Mary's life at this point. So now the police start taking another look at this. Thank God. But things get stranger. But you thought it was weird and crazy and strange, it gets worse. So they take a look at the gun, and they could see that there had been an attempt to scratch off the serial number, but they didn't completely remove it. So the police were able to recover the serial number on the gun, and they traced it back to its owner. And its original owner was none other than Mary's brother-in-law, Paul Fischauer.
What?
Yes.
What? I did not expect that at all. Like, you would think it would just be someone in the community, like, on the low, or, like, the letter writer, but, like, how in the hell could he be the letter writer?
Well, they're trying to find it out. So this came as a shock to obviously Mary and the police alike, because Paul was the guy who'd been hounding them.
Yeah, saying Ron's
to look into the murder, like the murder case for Ron's death.
It was a cover-up.
So none of this made any sense. So if he's trying to get his brother-in-law's murder solved, like, why is he now trying to kill Mary? Like, it makes absolutely no sense.
The math ain't mathin'.
The math is reverse mathing. Like me in math class. The math is going about as well as I did in algebra in my freshman year of college.
I got an A.
I dropped out.
Wow, that got dark. Anyway.
So obviously they trace the weapon back to Paul. The first thing they do is question him about it. And he admitted that the gun had belonged to him. But he also brought up that the gun had gone missing a few weeks before the incident. And he denied any involvement with the booby trap set to kill Mary. But
so somebody could have stole it from him.
They could have. But interestingly enough, Paul never reported the gun missing. And he didn't really have a whole lot at the time to back up his claim.
Yeah, usually, like, in my opinion, like, if a gun goes missing from your home, like...
That's a big problem.
Yeah, like, how do you misplace a gun? I mean...
Or even if it goes missing, like, if someone steals it or something, because this exact thing, it could be involved in a crime, and it gets traced immediately back to you. So, like, the smart thing to do is, like, hey, report it, like, clear your name immediately.
Report it to a local official. Someone.
I guess it's not totally out of the realm of possibilities that...
A loved one.
He just...
A Tinder match. Imagine a first message. It's like somebody messages you and it's like, hey, what's up? Well, I lost my gun. And then it's like unmatched. Sorry. Anyway.
Oh. Well, no Tinder matches were reported either. Paul was also married, so.
Well, yeah. But, you know.
But It's just like, obviously to police, they're just like, this looks a little weird.
Definitely sus, for real.
So also adding to the pile of suspicion against Paul is in regards to where he worked. So Paul worked at the Anheuser-Busch Brewery, which is located in Columbus, Ohio, which is where all of the letters are postmarked from.
Whoa.
Even more so, he had taken the day off of work, allegedly on the same day that the trap had been set. So as far as police were concerned, Paul was a major person of interest, and they took him in. So things get even more sideways in this case, though. The police decided to subject Paul to a handwriting test. So the writing on the letters was very strange and very recognizable, I guess would be a good way to put it. It was very disorganized. The grammar was kind of all over the place, and the letters were very blocky, like almost like an old digital clock.
Very square, blocky, sometimes in almost all capitals, very distinguishable, like not your standard normal handwriting. Like this handwriting stood out. So one of the next things that police needed to do to either rule in or rule out Paul as a suspect was to subject him to a handwriting test, which I'm not an expert on handwriting tests, but from what I understand is they have you just write something, or they take documents from your home or something like that with your handwriting. I think they have you write samples and stuff.
Yeah. And then they compare that against, whatever you're suspected of. They do a comparison with the evidence that they have, and then they make a judgment call based on that.
Right.
That did not happen. What they did instead was they took one of the letters, placed it in front of him, and instructed him to recreate it.
That's biased as all hell.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I mean, especially like with police pressure and stuff, I'd want to do a good job, but also like, what the fuck? That's like incriminating myself. Yeah. Like that's fucked up, man.
Yeah. So despite this defying every known practice in law enforcement and investigating, they declared his handwriting a perfect match and took him into custody for the attempted murder for his very own sister-in-law, Mary Gillespie.
Yucky.
Yeah. Everything about this has just been blown completely sideways.
It's like sideways, then rolled over, then the other sideways.
Then like GTA run over twice.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It's so bad. But with this happening just like a tiny little town, it's not like
it's
not like there's a lot of eyes on this. This is all happening in a super isolated way.
This is insane. Like, this is literally insanity. I can't.
It is. And I know I keep saying this, but there's more.
There's more.
There is more.
Oh my God.
So upon looking into Paul, because this has been some time since Mary and Ron had kind of collaborated with them to kind of sort all of this out. It's been at least more than 6 months. But in that time, Paul and then Karen, Ron's sister, had gone through a pretty gnarly divorce. Karen had an affair, and Paul was awarded custody of the 3 children, and Karen kind of lost it all. She ended up living in a trailer in Mary's backyard, and she was not happy about any of this. So that draws into question if Karen possibly had motive to frame Paul, her ex-husband.
Yeah.
And almost like using this whole situation with the letters and Ron's death as a vehicle to make that happen.
I mean, I can imagine probably as a mother, like how abandoned she felt, like losing custody of her children.
Of course, yeah.
I can't even imagine how that would feel.
And obviously she was unhappy with the whole situation because things kind of, blew up and then they decided to split. Yeah, a lot of high emotions circling this. So it's not unreasonable to think that she could have potentially had access to Paul's gun at one point or another. So she could, we don't know for sure, but she could have gotten her hands on it.
Yeah.
And she also initially told police that she had access to like letters, like quote, the letters that quote, Paul had written. So she was trying to throw him under the bus for all of this.
Yeah, there's some blood on some hands here.
Yeah. So the police pressed Karen about the letters, and coincidentally, she could not produce any. She just told police, "Oh, well, I got rid of them." So
Likely
her
story.
claims aren't exactly stacking up. And the further they looked into it, Paul's alibi actually, he did end up having one, a very valid one. So we mentioned before he took the day off work, allegedly the same day that the trap was set. Well, he was at his home and there was work being done on his house, and his story was corroborated and his alibi passed. But he was also super cooperative with police as well. And the only real connection at the time between Paul and the letters was just the accusations being made by Karen. But the police were taking this and running with it. Like, they had decided it was Paul, and they were going to use every little scrap shed of evidence pointing in his direction to just have him take the fall for this.
Yep.
So using Karen's testimony, the ridiculous copying of the handwriting letters, and the fact that the gun in the box was registered to him, he was eventually then charged with the attempted murder of Mary. He was not charged with anything related to the letters. So he was never officially charged with being the letter writer, but the allegedness, I guess, of Paul being the letter writer was used in the court case against him for the attempted murder.
Wow.
Everything about this is just so fucked.
It's fucked.
It's an absolute failure of the criminal justice system. It's absolutely crazy. There was also no physical evidence connecting Paul to the letters or the booby trap.
It sounds like the police were just tired of this and wanted to pin it.
They wanted to pin someone for this. They wanted it done out of the way.
Over.
So he was convicted of the attempted murder and sentenced to 7 to 25 years in prison.
That blows.
I don't want to say he didn't do it, but it's just there's...
But, like, what did he do?
Yeah.
How he had an alibi, and it checked out.
And none of the evidence against him held up, except for the fact that the gun did belong to him.
Yeah.
Whether it belonged to him when the trap was set, we don't know. But it was his registered weapon.
But you'd think that they would have fingerprinted it, especially because she didn't touch it.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, like,
there's a lot of holes in this. Oh,
yeah, there's a lot of holes.
There's a lot of shortcomings in this investigation for sure.
Yeah, I watch a lot of true crime.
So, yeah. Like, we know how this goes, right? Or how it's supposed to go. Even before a lot of, like, modern technology, DNA, all that stuff, like, there were still lots of processes in place to verify this stuff. And as far as we know, they did none of that. Zip. They're just like, ooh, gun in the box used to be yours. You want work and your wife says you did it. Okay, cool.
Okay, you did it then.
Later, dude.
Yeah.
It's wild. So they've got their guy, right? He's behind bars, like, case closed. That should be it, right?
The letter should stop.
Well, they don't. So even with Paul behind bars, the letters proceeded to continue again. So while it is moderately possible for Paul to have maybe sent a few letters from prison, it's just so unlikely.
Are the letters still postmarked from Columbus?
They are, which also draws up some interestingness to this. Not only were they starting to show up in Circleville again, Paul himself received a letter from the writer. And
what?
Listen to what this is evil. This is absolutely evil. The letter writer stated, quote, "Now when are you going to believe you aren't going to get out of there? I told you 2 years ago, when we set them up, they stay up. Don't you listen at all?"
Oh my God.
That is
evil. Cryptic and evil, and that, okay, well, it's definitely not Paul. Like, how could he, oh my God.
Right? So it should be easy, right?
And it's
like, the
someone
letters
he knows
are going on.
And may have, like, had business associations with or something, or...
So the letters are still coming into Circleville. And throughout all of this, the police are still convinced it's him. Like, this is where things just start turning stupid at this point.
How dumb can you be?
Apparently more dumb than we think. because multiple times while Paul is in prison, they tried to, quote, like, bust him for writing the letters. They raid his cell multiple times. They conduct, like, full body searches of Paul. They even put him in solitary confinement, but the letters don't stop.
Clearly, it's not him, dude. Like,
yeah. And, you know, we were talking about, like, the location. Paul was in... He wasn't even incarcerated in Columbus.
That's what I was wondering, because if the letters are still getting postmarked from Columbus,
yeah,
but
he was incarcerated in Lima, Ohio, which is, like, not anywhere near Columbus. It's
like at least an hour away.
Yeah. So there's absolutely no way, even if the letters were coming from Paul, there would have been signs.
Right.
And also, isn't mail checked in prisons? Like,
I actually don't know that
outgoing
answer.
mail, I don't know, but I feel like if they were suspicious, like, they were already doing what would normally be done, right? Like, they're absolutely hounding Paul, watching his every move, and the letters are still showing up. Like, you'd think they're clearly...
If you're listening to this and you've been to prison and received some mail, feel free to leave us a comment on the process of this.
We want to know about your mail.
I do want to know. I assume it's really not. Maybe it's put through like a metal detector or something, or like an X-ray now, but then
I don't know. I figured they'd probably just open it.
Oh,
like,
that's
you've already
isn't
lost.
That illegal? Well,
you're a prisoner.
Your
rights are a little different in prison.
Yeah, feel free to shoot us a comment or an email. We'll tag our email at the end.
I feel like they 100% would just open it. So while Paul was in prison, a fellow school bus driver of Mary's did come forward to the police and say that they had seen a large man with sandy-colored hair driving a yellow El Camino standing very close to the site where the booby trap was found on the same day that Mary found the booby trap. So it hadn't been set up yet, but they did report seeing someone in that location. So there was only about a 20-minute difference between when they said they saw this person and when Mary saw the sign.
And a yellow El Camino. In a small town, a yellow El Camino is like a statement.
You would notice that.
You would know. It's like, oh my God, I know who drives a yellow El Camino.
Yeah, and they got a good view of the person. Like, they noticed he was like tall, color of his hair, obviously a yellow El Camino. Like, you're not gonna not notice that car. And the timing, they spotted him about 20 minutes before Mary took down the sign. So it's very likely that this person, they spotted him in the act of putting up the sign.
And did Paul own a yellow El Camino?
We're getting there.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Sorry.
We're getting there.
You've got me on the edge of my seat with this one.
I know, I am too, and I wrote this bitch.
Twisted fuckery of a story I've heard in so long.
It's
like,
so messed up.
I'm keeping my reactions to a minimum, because every 2 minutes I'd be going, what the fuck? What the fuck?
Good, that's what I want, because that's literally what happened. So here's the thing, though. They didn't get a good look at the man's face when they spotted him. But also, the thing that is here is that Paul does not match this description whatsoever. Paul is not a big dude. He has dark hair. Short king. Not the guy that the person saw at the scene. So here's who that description does match. So tall, sandy hair, yellow El Camino.
Ugh.
The person connected to this case that does match that description, that matches the description of her new boyfriend.
What the fuck? Was it the one she was
dating a man who was large and had sandy hair, and Karen's brother owned a yellow El Camino.
Oh, man. So was her new boyfriend the one she was having the affair with?
That was not made clear.
Okay. I would assume so, but
it's highly likely.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if it's clear. I don't know. But whoever she was dating after she got divorced from Paul matches exactly the description of the guy at the scene. He was driving her brother's car.
Really is sounding like Karen wanted to frame Paul.
Yep. Well, guess what the police did with this information? Nothing.
Because they big suck.
Absolutely nothing. They were still just hard pressed to just keep Paul in prison as the one taking the fall for this crime.
Sounds like they're being super lazy and hands off with this case.
100%.
Sucks so much.
Like, fuck these guys.
Big time fuck these guys.
So this happened in the late 70s, right?
Yes.
So in 1993, an episode of Unsolved Mysteries was set to air, and this episode covered the story of the Circleville letters. But before the episode aired, the producers received an anonymous postcard from, guess who?
The letter writer.
The letter writer.
And so the letters had essentially stopped up to that point, right?
I think it's believed so.
Okay.
It didn't really... I couldn't get any real clarity if they continued or if they stopped, but I'm also assuming based on the emphasis of this that they either hadn't stopped or had slowed way down. If they had I butchered that. So I think it's safe to assume that they either had stopped or had slowed way down because like the writers coming out of the woodwork to send a postcard to this production crew. And the postcard said, "Forget Circleville, Ohio. If you come to Ohio, you El Sickos will pay." Signed, the Circleville writer.
El Sickos?
El Sickos.
You couldn't think of anything else to say other than El Sickos.
Well, mind you, and I didn't go into great detail about a lot of the content of the letters, but they were very strangely written. You can go online and look up the letter. Like, some of these letters are on the internet, and
I'm gonna have to look at them.
They are hard to read.
Ugh.
Like, they're just the grammar and the wordage. They're just not
unhinged.
They're just difficult to read. Yeah. So this kind of falls in line, but yeah, I love the El Sickos.
And like how
they went out of their way
hell?
to say that.
Yes, they did. And how the hell would they even know that they were gonna film this? That they were gonna cover this? I mean, did somebody maybe come to Circleville and then word got around? Or
I'm assuming that's what happened.
Probably. Maybe came and started interviewing.
Yeah, I really don't know. But well, actually, yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming they had to have come to Circleville.
Probably.
Because they interviewed Paul in prison as well.
Yeah, so surely, yeah, I bet word just got around. Because there wasn't really email then, was there? I don't think so. 93, you said?
Yeah, probably not.
In a small town, I'm going to go with
Well,
no.
okay, I do need to backtrack a little bit here. So, at this time, Paul had actually been released on parole.
Oh.
But it wasn't because they proved his innocence.
Shit. Why? Good behavior?
He was just released on, I'm assuming, good behavior. Not even the fact that they're like, "Oh, you were wrongfully convicted, we're going to let you go." They're just like, "You've been a great prisoner of guilt."
Yeah, definitely
We're going to set you
guilty.
back out into the free world. Yeah. So I think it probably, if the letter writer still had a pulse on what's going on in Circleville, which I'm assuming he did, obviously word probably would have gotten to them pretty quickly that Paul was out of prison. There were interviews going on. There's going to be a show. It all kind of adds up. But I mean, TV producers doing what they do, they aired the show anyway.
Hell yeah, they did.
Because there wasn't even any weight to that postcard. It could have just been, you know what I mean? Like, it's allegedly from the writer, but still, they're like, no, we're going to release this anyway.
So they did.
They did. They released the episode. It aired on TV. And to this date, that postcard sent to the producers of Unsolved Mysteries would be the last known writing from the Circleville writer, because after the TV show aired and got everything out into the public, the letters dried up. They stopped.
Wonder if the letter writer like died or something.
I don't know. But I mean, also if the whole, on national television, what you're doing is getting
publicized,
out
like
onto
people
the air.
know now. People are gonna look for you.
You don't have this tiny little town on lockdown anymore.
No,
like other
you don't
people are
have
gonna
control.
look into this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense for them to just stop. Yeah. So I mean, that's the story of the Circleville letters. That's where we're at.
What a wild ride.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I'm still holding on to, though, that I'm sorry if you explained it, but I just feel like I need a little more clarity.
Yeah.
The part where the coroner got a letter about being a abuser. So what happened there? Like, were they actually...
Well, I don't know about that at the time, but I do have a couple post-credit scenes for you.
Oh my God. Okay, here
and
we go.
It's not good. So, Dr. Ray Carroll, the county coroner who claimed that Ron died with a blood alcohol level of 1.5 times the legal limit, and who was also accused by the Circleville writer of child molestation in December of 1993, was charged with 12 counts of immorality, sex crimes, corruption of a minor, pornography, obscenity, and indecent exposure.
Well, shit.
So if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck,
A fucking duck.
Yeah.
Yuck. So the letter writer did know about him.
It seems that way.
Ugh.
David Longberry, the co-worker of Mary's who tried to make a move, this one is pretty dark. So David Longberry, the school bus driver who originally, tried to make a move on Mary, who they originally thought could have been the letter writer, in 1999 sexually assaulted an 11-year-old girl and
oh my God,
is still currently at large.
So still in jail?
No, he never got caught.
Oh my God, he never got caught?
Yeah, to my knowledge, he's still on the run.
What?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, my mouth is like on the floor. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
Oh, a lot. It sounds like maybe the Circleville writer wasn't too far off.
Man.
Oh. I also wanted to let you know, I'm not laughing at what has happened to these people. I'm laughing to just how absolutely insane all of this is. It's just like disbelief. So, yeah, Paul was released from prison for good behavior. He was released on parole. And until his death in 2012, at the age of really only 70 years old,
so kind of young.
He was a little young, but literally up until the day he died, claimed his innocence. And all things kind of pointed that way. Yeah. So the most recent major thing was in August of 2021, CBS aired an episode of 48 Hours that claimed that they definitively identified the Circleville writer through forensic document examination. CBS hired a document examiner whose name is Beverly East, who compared the Circleville letter to Paul Freshour's known handwriting. She said she found several similarities between Paul's handwriting and the writer's handwriting. She said that there are patterns in the anonymous letters that did not match Paul's handwriting, but allegedly found more than 100, quote, quirks of the handwriting that did match.
That's a lot.
Now, also bear in mind, handwriting examinations and evaluations, those sorts of things, as far as I know, they don't really carry a lot of weight in court.
No.
Because it's so open to interpretation. Kind of like a confirmation bias.
Yes.
Not self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's okay. Confirmation bias makes sense.
Confirmation bias. Well, I mean, I guess it kind of, but yeah, confirmation bias. Like if you're going into this with the goal of trying to pin Paul for this, you're going to find similarities. Just like someone who's going in there to try to find his innocence is going to find all the not similarities. I
don't know too much about forensic linguistics, but I do know that, if handwriting samples were so good and stuff, then why the fuck didn't they find the Zodiac killer?
Right, exactly.
Or another one, a big one that I've seen a lot on lately has been the John Benet Ramsey case.
That was a really interesting one.
Yeah, because they
Super
did
interesting.
multiple samples of Patsy Ramsey's handwriting to try and, and her as a suspect and stuff. And it was never enough, it's just,
I mean,
it's
even
reaching,
in my own handwriting, I don't.
Confirmation bias is definitely the right word here.
I don't write the same way depending on if, what kind of pen I'm using or what kind of surface I'm writing. There's been times where I write something and I'm like, ooh, that looks good. And then there's other times I've been scribbling something on a Post-it and I'm like, this looks like a 2-year-old wrote it with their offhand. You know? It
was my brother's birthday last week and I wrote his name on his birthday card. And the first letter, which is a G, it didn't G. The rest of it spelled out, but the G looked like
and that happens to everybody, you know.
My brain just went, what? Like,
so I'm not saying you can't prove anything with it, but I just don't think it's rock solid enough.
It is. I agree with you on that. There's no way, or it would have been used. We would have more cases today.
Yeah, it's just not solid. No. But to wrap all of this up, so even after all the investigations, the multiple TV shows that aired about this, there's been multiple podcasts, YouTube episodes, all sorts of stuff covering this. There was still never really enough concrete evidence to actually pin Paul as the letter writer. Like, yes, he was convicted and yes, he served time in prison, but you add it all up and there's just not enough there. And to this day, 48 years after the letter started, the letter of the Circleville writers is still a complete mystery. No one knows. Maybe never will. They're probably dead.
I think they died.
At this point,
probably.
Yeah. I mean,
that, or they felt like they lost control, and if they started sending them again, they've got all eyes on them.
Yeah, it's just all of that happening for 15 years, and then they just stop. You know, like they're like, "Ooh, everybody knows about this," and then they just disappear forever.
Went incognito or died. You would have to. I really do think that you would have to be a serious psychopath to spin a web like that and cause harm to people like that and terrorize their lives and stuff for 15 years.
What could motivate a person to do that?
I'm going back to that superintendent and stuff. Like, that doesn't really sound like that sounds like it was an accusation that was kind of used to, like, thicken the plot and spin the web.
Yeah, because I just kind of touched on one corner of this.
I know. There's so much more, you know? Like, there was a whole town getting letters.
Mm-hmm. There were. And it was coming up about all kinds of different stuff. This was just the one that just really took the cake.
I wonder how many of the people that went through this are still living.
It really makes me wonder.
Because, like, what if, like, I don't know, 60 Minutes did something on this, or ABC 2020, you know, like, reopen it, like, go. I would love to see some interviews and stuff. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe I should watch the CBS one.
Yeah, well, that was just in 2021. So we might have to dig that up and watch that.
That was what? It's 2025, so like 4 years ago-ish.
Basically.
So that's not that long.
Yeah.
Okay.
God, that feels weird to say.
It really does. I can't believe it's 2025. Like, can you believe it's 2025? Am I just like...
I don't believe anything anymore, so...
Yeah.
That's just where I'm at.
Time is an illusion.
It does feel weird.
It feels so weird.
But yeah, so there you have it, gang. The Circleville letters.
Well, that was an amazing story, Casey. And
Thank you for joining me.
Literally, I wish like I had a seatbelt on the couch because I couldn't. It's a wonder I didn't flip the fucking laptop table over.
There are so many just what the fuck moments in that story, and
it went so many different ways that I did not even think it was gonna go.
Yeah. And then it keeps doing that.
It keeps doing it, and then nothing. And then done.
Yeah, I think that's
and it's unsolved.
That's still the worst part, is after all of that, there's still just no idea.
I really want somebody to like... There's got to be somebody out there that is just so hyper intelligent that they can solve some of these unsolved cases. It's not me. It's not.
No.
For the record. But I know someone out there is. I'm sure.
So if you're out there
and you're listening to
this, please do it. And can we hang out with you while you do it?
Yeah, can I be your friend? Can I be your token dystopian friend?
On this?
So that was a wild ride of a story. I have something a bit different for you.
Okay.
Like I said at the beginning, it's kind of an esoteric myth.
So we're getting a little out there.
We're getting a little out there. We're getting a little, dare I say, mythical.
I love everything about this. No, it's fun to just kind of lose yourself in something kind of ridiculous and
this is kind of ridiculous.
Go with it. Yeah, we're just gonna go with it.
So I'm just gonna start by saying the general concept of this is a multicultural myth, which makes it even cooler in my opinion. So like multicultural, like we've got some clout here.
Yeah. So you're saying like across multiple different
cultures all
People
over the world.
of the world, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that definitely, no matter what it is, I saw something, I don't want to go on a tangent, but I saw something very interesting recently that was like old, ancient, and spanning
like
multiple...
a commonality?
Yeah.
Wonder if it's what I'm going to talk about.
It's not.
Okay.
It's not. Because I don't really know much about what you're talking about, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, yes.
But it was one of those things where it's like, like 3 different continents all around the same time. It's interesting.
I'm interested.
It was aliens.
Oh, yeah. Of course it was aliens. So Indian culture has a story of Patala. That's a beautiful land with crystal clear lakes in the subterranean realm of the earthly dimension. The Mayans have the story of Xibalba, underworld where 2 twin brothers emerged and were the first people on Earth.
I've heard that one.
Celtic, ancient Greek, ancient Egyptian, ancient Sumerian, Babylonian, Aztec, Native American, Hindu, you name it, have stories about subterranean worlds.
So underground, we're talking.
We're going underground.
Down in there.
Down under. So, in my opinion, the most popular one and the one that I'll be covering today is called Agartha. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it, but I don't know a lot, so I'm excited for this.
Okay. Agartha is essentially a mythical subterranean kingdom supposedly located in the center of the earth.
Ooh, like there was that... Oh, wasn't there a movie, Journey to the Center?
Yes.
Yeah, Journey to the Center of the Earth, yeah.
I honestly, maybe I've seen it, but I don't think I've seen it.
It's been so long.
So maybe that might be worth a rewatch. But
yeah.
And then I think King Kong, they sent him to the center of the earth.
They
too,
did. I do remember that. Yeah.
I remember that one, but I don't remember the other one. So there are said to be a number of entrances into Agartha, one even being Mammoth Cave in Kentucky.
Have you been there?
I haven't. Add it to the list.
I went a long time ago. Like I was probably like preteen, young teenager. I do remember it being very cool though.
Yeah, I know it's a really popular destination for a lot of rock climbers. I personally am not a rock climber, but I do like hiking and I like camping and just being outdoors in general. So
close enough.
Right, close enough. So I definitely need to check it out sometime. And then another entrance is said to be in Mount Shasta in California. So do you know anything about Mount Shasta?
I know there's allegedly some very interesting things that happen in Mount Shasta.
It's a UAP hotspot.
Yeah.
Yes, at a minimum. So that's one. And then the most popular theory, though, is that the entrance is in the cave of Deros in Greece, or under the Great Pyramid of Giza. Because I guess under the Great Pyramid of Giza, they found caves.
I feel like I've heard that.
I didn't hear it.
But they're also really strict about what you can...
Right.
Like, archaeologists are very limited with the pyramids.
I think they are, and I just read about that when I was researching this, so I don't know a whole lot of information about what's under the Great Pyramid of Giza, but...
Just let them in there.
Yeah, let them in.
Just let them in there.
Man,
don't y'all want to know?
Let me in.
Come on.
Or in the Himalayan mountains in Tibet is said to be an entrance, and it's guarded by Buddhist monks.
Guarded?
Guarded. I don't know.
What aren't they telling us?
I mean, really? Like,
everything?
I
just imagine the scene from Lord of the Rings with, like, Frodo and Gandalf in the beginning. They're like, all right, then, keep your secrets.
Keep your secrets.
Maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah, maybe it is.
Maybe they're guarding us.
Yeah, but honestly, though, like, I could take it. Like, I could handle the information.
I don't know.
You don't know if you could?
Well, we'll circle back to that thought.
I could sleep at night.
Tell us about Agartha.
Okay, another theory is that entrances to Agartha are found on planetary grid points or ley lines, which, if you're not familiar with ley lines, they are said to be invisible energy pathways that link ancient monuments, settlements, and landscape features.
And there's
a lot.
There are lots of things revolving around ley lines if you're into that kind of thing. Ley lines are like a very big... they're just a big deal.
They essentially provide a current of energy that channels power into historical sites, like the pyramids, for example.
Yeah, like all of these major places are interconnected, right?
Yeah, like the theory that the pyramids were power plants, kind of like it comes down to ley lines.
Right.
Yep.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
And they've also like known to be like potential guides for alien spacecrafts visiting our planet as well, like a map, kind of. In order to fully cover and understand the myth of Agartha, we also have to cover another conspiracy theory.
Ooh, a double-decker.
A double-decker. So we have to cover the Hollow Earth conspiracy theory.
Oh, yeah.
Which is exactly what it sounds like. I mean, like, you know, with the Circleville name and then the Squares people, like, they didn't get real creative with this
no
name.
Metaphor here.
No, nothing. It is what it sounds like. So it refers to Earth having a hollow center rather than a molten core. And hollow Earth theory has existed since ancient times, and it has survived to present day, surprisingly. Dante Alighieri portrayed planet Earth in this way in the Divine Comedy's Inferno, also called like Dante's Inferno.
I'm pretty familiar with this. Yep, yep.
Many scholars from the 16th century onward thought the Earth had a hollow shell with layers containing different atmospheres, densities, and even a miniature sun at its center. But also, how would they even begin to guess that the center of the Earth was like a molten core, you know? Like how, like, honestly, if I was kind of a 16th century scholar or like a estranged writer, like I'd be coming up with some cool shit.
Right.
You know?
Just for the attention, if anything.
Yeah. So with that said, I would like to get into the history of Agartha. The myth of Agartha was first introduced in Louis Jallicot's 1873 book, Les Filles de Dieu, which I speak French. I think we may have covered that before, but
that was beautiful.
Thank you. Just in case we didn't, that book translates Les Filles de Dieu.
That just sounds cool.
Les Filles de Dieu translates to the sons of God.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, so it is profound.
It is kind of. I don't know much about Louis Jallicot, but anyway, he wrote that book in 1873, and from there, a French occultist and linguistics enthusiast, Alexandre Saint-Yves d'Alvedre, met a man named Prince Hardiji Sharif. Definitely may have butchered that.
That does not sound French.
This name is not French.
Not French.
Through learning the Sanskrit language. So this Prince Hardiji Sharif was teaching the Sanskrit language. And
gotcha.
Yeah.
Which that's like ancient we're talking about, right?
Yeah, but a lot of things, a lot of modern languages are pulled from Sanskrit, like Hindu, like Indian languages.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I know. Okay, so like a lot of those and the similar and adjacent ones come from Sanskrit.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so he was a very educated man and tutor, but he proclaimed that he came from a great Agarthian school.
Oh.
He taught not only Sanskrit, but also an unknown language called Vitanian, apparently spoken by Agarthians.
So he's saying he came from the middle of the earth.
Yes. And to prove it, he taught the language, which he called Vitanian. Why is it not called Agarthian?
I don't know.
Like, Vitanian? Like, they're not the Vitarthians. I mean, I'm just being real here.
They're not.
I speak multiple languages, and the math ain't mathin' on that. Anyways, another early source for the general belief in underground civilizations is a book called The Smoky God, or A Voyage to the Inner Worlds, which was written in 1908 by an author named Willis George Emerson. Not a cool French name. And that book's actually available on Amazon. I looked. I didn't look how much, but I can't imagine a lot. It was written in 1908, so it's probably like, what, 99 cents?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
That sounds like an interesting read, though.
I've heard it's a really fun read.
I want to, like, turn of the century sci-fi, basically. That's got to be really cool.
So it claims to be the biography of a Norwegian sailor named Olaf Jansen. The book tells a story of how Jansen's boat sailed through an entrance to the Earth's interior at the North Pole, and for 2 years he lived with the inhabitants of an underground network of colonies.
Whoa.
Big whoa. The inhabitants...
So this is to be taken as fact, you're saying? Because this is biography.
I mean...
Allegedly.
Allegedly, it's this man's biography, but it was written by not Olaf Jansen. It was written by Willis George Emerson. So...
Right, well, I mean, biography is something that someone writes about someone else's life.
Oh, that's true. I'm an idiot. I was thinking of an autobiography.
Autobiography, yeah. That's that's when you write your own story. Yeah, biography is just someone depicting the life of someone else.
True. And I actually didn't research Olaf Jansen very much, so he could have been a real person. I'll be honest, I don't fucking know.
I don't fucking know either.
Okay. The inhabitants were 12 feet tall, and their underground world was lit by a smoky central sun. So hence the title of the book, The Smoky God.
Smoky God.
Their capital city was said to be the original Garden of Eden. While Emerson does not use the name Agartha, later works have identified the civilization Jansen encountered with Agartha and its citizens as Agarthians.
Interesting.
I know. Like, what are the odds that... It's just so crazy that it's a multicultural myth, and... That's
when things like that, for me, I probably give them a little more attention than I would if it was just like, oh, some guy in 1908 wrote this book, and here's this whole thing. But it's like when things start showing up across...
On the other side of the world, in a book, 1873...
otherwise wouldn't be connected, and then there are all these similarities. That's when it really gets interesting for me,
for sure. So I guess how did Agartha come to be a city? So here we go deeper down the rabbit hole,
literally,
because it ties into Atlantis.
I love Atlantis stuff.
Super
interesting.
I used to nerd out so hard when I was a kid to that Atlantis the Lost Empire Disney movie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I still love that movie.
Highly underrated, in my opinion.
Highly underrated. So good. And then, like, dude, like, if I'm, like, I know we talk about how I put on, like, dumb YouTube shit, like, sci-fi shit and stuff, like, when I'm getting sleepy at night. I love, like, the Searching for Atlantis shit. You know?
Oh, yeah. I think it's...
And, like, no one ever finds
it. I feel like there's just enough credibility to it to keep you hooked.
Yeah. Because it's like, it was documented about, but it's very brief, and I'll get into it a little bit. Yeah. So the tie to Atlantis is the Atlantean-Lemurian War is a supposed cataclysmic war between the ancient civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria. And I think we're all familiar with the story of Atlantis, that it was an advanced civilization somewhere out in the Mediterranean, and the civilization unexpectedly fell and disappeared and was never found again. And then if you're not familiar, Lemuria was a continent proposed in 1864 by zoologist Philip Sclater, theorized to have sunk beneath the Indian Ocean, and it was home also to an advanced civilization called the Lemurians. So supposedly they went to war. And the power of thermonuclear weaponry is what many believe eventually sank and destroyed these two highly advanced civilizations. So Agartha was created as a refuge for the people and as a safe haven for sacred records, vast libraries, as well as their teachings and technology. So the potential inhabitants of Agartha could be from Atlantis and Lemuria. So that's one theory.
Yeah, of course, everyone's heard of, like, you know, Atlantis. That one's pretty common. But yeah, the Lemurians was something that I learned about fairly recently as well.
Yes.
And I know a little bit about, I know, like, I'm an expert, but I've heard some things and read some stuff and watched some videos about the Atlantean-Lemurian War and people who have allegedly come from the Lemurian culture. Yeah, really, really interesting.
I just know, kind of like Atlantis, like Lemuria was on a map and then it wasn't. And why? You know, was it that this Philip guy got it wrong? Was it that, you know, I know there's a lot of unknowns there. So that's just one theory. Other sources reference the inhabitants to be called the Old Ones and state that they are an immensely intelligent and scientifically advanced race. They are hominid and predate Homo sapiens by more than 1 million years.
Whoa.
The Old Ones theory is a bit different than the Atlantean Lemurian theory in that if you look up the history of Atlantis, Plato says it was around 9,000 years before the time of Solon, which would place it at roughly 9,000 BCE.
Okay.
So the Old Ones theory and the Atlantean Lemurian theory, those are just totally different because the timelines are just different. Another theory actually came about in 1945. It states that Agartha is home to inhabitants called the Elder Race, also called Titan. They came to planet Earth from another solar system in our prehistoric past. And they started out by living on Earth's surface, but realized the sun was causing them to age prematurely. I mean, we all realize that at some point.
And that holds true to this day.
It does. Wear your sunscreen, y'all. So they moved underground and built a subterranean city, which they eventually decided to seek a new home on a new planet and evacuated Earth and left behind their city, which was now populated by artificial beings.
Ooh.
The evil Darrow, which were detrimental robots, and the good Tarot, which were societally integrated robots.
I've only heard a little bit about these, so this is super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how all this is kind of tying in.
Yeah, so this came from 1945 because this story was told by a man named Richard Shaver, and he submitted it to a magazine, and it was published, but like obviously nobody believed it. And he was said to be kind of like a psychopath, actually.
Oh, there's a shocker.
But yeah, he claimed to recently have been a guest of the Tarot robots.
Interesting.
I know. I don't know how he got there.
I'm sure he had.
Maybe he went to Mammoth Cave in Kentucky.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe he drank some moonshine and just said, tits up, let's go.
Let's go.
LFG.
Where the robots at? And they're like, welcome, brother.
Welcome to Agartha. I'm your tarot robot friend.
Would you like a tarot reading?
Oh, that was a good one. That was a good one.
What if that's where it all comes from? They just pull out their little like robot cards and they...
That's where it came from.
Tell me I'm wrong. Prove it.
Nope, I can't.
Prove it.
I can't. So Buddhist theory suggests that there was a race of supermen and superwomen who occasionally came to the surface to oversee the development of the human race. The king of this world was believed to have given orders to the Dalai Lama of Tibet, who is his terrestrial representative. His messages are transmitted through certain secret tunnels connecting the inner world of Agartha with Tibet.
Are we getting into lizard people territory here? Because it kind of sounds like it.
It's definitely lizard people territory, but I did not jump into the reptilians here. I avoided
that is its own episode.
It is.
In its entirety.
It absolutely is. And I plan on covering it in the future. So
as soon as you started talking about that, I'm like, lizard people.
Yeah, the lizard people.
Lizard people.
And there is a theory that, reptilian, there is a reptilian theory that they live in an underground. That's why we can't find them, is because they're living underground.
They poke their heads up every now and then to keep things moving along.
To keep the order, to make sure things are going along with the new world order. So
yeah.
Right. Anyway, but that is a bigger concept for another time. But people have went looking for Agartha throughout history.
How would you even do that? Through one of these locations?
Kind of. So one guy that did... his name is Admiral Richard Byrd.
Admiral,
have you heard of him?
Yes, Admiral. No, he just sounds important.
Okay. I mean, he kind of was. He was an admiral in the U.S. Navy, and he was in Antarctica for Operation High Jump, which was the establishment of an American research base there.
Yep.
So while flying over the landscape, Byrd's instruments went haywire, and he saw a green forest among snowy mountain ranges. His radio was then hijacked by the Agarthian super beings. They invited him to land and visit the subterranean city. He described it as a vast metropolis, glittering with rainbow colors, too beautiful and wonderful to describe.
Oddly convenient for someone who's making something up off the top of their head.
Very. These Agarthians supposedly expressed their concerns to him over the world wars, as well as the current development of nuclear weapons.
Interesting.
Isn't it what I said about the Atlantean Lemurian War with the thermonuclear weapons?
Oh yeah, a lot of parallels here.
A lot of parallels. After their meeting, they sent Byrd back to the surface, and he was sworn to secrecy by the U.S. government after reporting what he saw to the Pentagon. So,
I feel like they would have just killed him.
Maybe, but like, there's other people out there, like, this is another completely different episode to talk about, but like Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
You know, he was a big, I don't know what the right word for it, researcher at Area 51, and he came forward as a whistleblower, and they haven't killed him as far as I know.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man, this is just the biggest economy size can of worms talking about this.
Oh, big time. That is
there's so much I want to go into about all of that, but we'd be here all night.
Well, yes, but the Germans have also went looking for it. So Admiral Byrd for the U.S. and then the Germans, specifically the Nazi Germans.
Who else?
Right. They supposedly had very specific instructions on how to get there, like written instructions, like steps 1 through 8 kind of thing on how to get there and then how to act when you get there.
Do we know where those instructions came from?
We don't. The Nazis? I mean, I don't know who wrote them. But
yeah, that's what I'm curious about. Like, where did these allegedly come from? Yeah.
That is a great question, and I'm definitely going to have to look into that and follow up with you.
I'm super curious. Okay, so the same time, the Navy Admiral
Byrd.
So was this World War II era as well?
It was.
Interesting.
Well, it actually may have been before World War II.
Okay.
Well, no, it couldn't have been because the Agarthians were concerned about the world wars, plural. So it must have been.
Because, I mean, given what we know about, like, the Nazi scientists and stuff like that, I mean, American scientists were too, but especially the Nazis, I feel like, kind of have a reputation where known for just, like, going after everything. And if there was a way for them to get...
shit.
Yeah, and they're... Yeah, super experimental. And like I said, the U.S. was too, but around that time, it's kind of like, hey, if there's a way we could figure out some way to get ahead, like, we're going to go for it.
Right.
So it's really interesting to hear that they were kind of like both sides were kind of looking for this same crazy, mythical, ancient, advanced society that hopefully was going to help them win the war. Like, that's...
Well, they believe...
That's crazy.
It is absolutely crazy. The Nazis believe they could get to Agartha through the South Pole. And German U-boat 209 said he reached the interior and found vast tunnels. And there's a rumor that after they lost World War II, some of the Nazis escaped.
Interesting.
I'll be honest with
tunnels
you.
in Antarctica?
The South Pole.
Oh.
Like... the tunnels that lead to Agartha.
Yeah.
I really don't believe that. Like, and there's, again, a whole other episode on something we could talk about, like, the conspiracy theory around Hitler, you know, and, like, did he really die?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I want to believe he did.
That's another episode in its entirety as well.
I want to believe they all did, honestly, but I bet some escaped. This is looping into
so many interesting things.
It kind of is. It's
really woven into so many really cool stories along the way.
So, is there any, like, scientific truth to Agartha? Like, that's what we're going to get into next.
That's the big question. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go because
Let's science it up.
Science it up. In 2014, scientists discovered a huge underground reservoir of water trapped in the Earth's mantle.
Oh, word?
Word. The discovery was made when Graham Pearson of the University of Alberta studied a brown diamond found in Mato Grosso, Brazil. The diamond contained ringwoodite. That does not sound like it's real. Ringworm is like
ringworm?
Yeah, that is a parasite.
Ringwoodite?
Yeah, ringwoodite. Not ringwormite, but sounds like it. Either way. Ringwoodite is a blue mineral that acts like a sponge to trap water. And this ringwoodite was discovered around 430 miles underground in the mantle. So the mantle is the hot rocky layer between the crust and the core. So it goes crust.
Well, I'm thinking 430 miles horizontally, like traveling somewhere.
Yeah, like
430 miles away. And we're talking about just going straight down 430. Like, what is 430 miles from here? Like, I can't.
I think Detroit's like not even that far. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but just like ballpark it, like from
maybe like Chicago.
Like from here to like Chicago, like
into the
ground.
Uh-huh.
It's one of those things that like my brain has a hard time even like wrapping itself around
For
what
sure.
that even is. Like maybe it's because I'm dumb. I don't know.
I mean, you did drop out of math class. No, I'm kidding.
Listen.
I'm kidding.
No, but I totally did.
That's totally.
Maybe I should have stayed and I could have.
No, you shouldn't have. I'd
be more up to date on my ringwoodite.
I had to do a lot of math classes in college. And
I dropped out of ringworm class too.
Oh, that's a good one to drop out of. Yuck. But yeah, the mantle is like the hot rocky layer between the crust and the core. I just wanted to say that just in case.
And the mantle is like big, right? Like it's like
huge.
Really, I mean, that explains why they were like 460 miles into it.
Yeah, it's actually called the like transitional zone, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But this kind of finding that kind of gave a clue that the water on Earth could have simply seeped from within, forming our oceans, rather than coming from a comet or an asteroid collision.
Yeah.
And the water reservoir is estimated to be 3 times the volume of all the Earth's oceans. So it could fill the Earth's oceans 3 times.
And the Earth is 75% water.
Word.
Brother.
Based.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of water.
It's a lot of H2O, bro.
And the water's not static. It's constantly cycling as tectonic plates move. So there's that. And then also in the summer of 2015, Samantha Hansen, along with her team of researchers from the University of Arizona and the University of Alabama, went to Antarctica and installed seismology stations. So using the stations, the researchers identified a mysterious range of underground mountains sandwiched between Earth's mantle and core.
How do you even get an underground mountain?
According to their study, these mountains are 5 times taller than Mount Everest in some places, and they published their findings in the journal called Science Advances. So the mountains were found in the same place the water was, which is the transition zone. So it's in the mantle. It's the layer between the Earth's lower mantle and upper mantle.
Gotcha. And these are supposedly mountains.
Supposedly, but we'll keep getting into it. So let's get down to the nitty gritty science of these.
Yes,
things, though, because
we need some cold hard facts.
Yeah, these 2 things definitely were kind of like the clickbait articles of 2014 and 2015 in the science community.
Oh, 100%.
And
I'd click on that so fast.
Oh, same. I did click on it.
Yeah, you did.
I did. I was like, what the fuck is that? Oh, Agartha? Ooh. But the water found in the transition zone, it's not like flowing water. So like, let's get that straight.
Okay, gotcha.
It is trapped in rocks and minerals. So it's like not flowing. It's just like water molecules trapped in rocks and shit. And the mountains, well, it's not like the mountains that we imagine on the surface of the Earth. It is mountains of material.
Okay, but that makes sense, though.
Kinda, yeah.
That's easier to understand, because I'm thinking, like, underground mountains, like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, like, where's the sky for the mountains to be in, you know? Like,
right, exactly.
Like, where's the room? There isn't.
So you're saying it's massive deposits of, or mountainous shaped deposits of minerals and rocks and things like that. Okay, and then the water is more so like
molecules,
moisture trapped in all of this stuff.
Yeah, like
gotcha. Not like pools or
no, not like an ocean you could swim in.
Right.
Or a perfect crystal clear lake You could go kayaking.
Man, that'd be dope.
With a friend and a bottle of champagne. Man, I would love to be doing that right now.
With your brown diamonds.
Yeah, with my brown diamond, though, that's a vibe. I think that's a vibe. I like the salt and pepper diamonds. I mean, my engagement ring is a black diamond, but oh yeah. He done good. What we do know is that the Earth is made up of the crust, the mantle, the core, and the inner core.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've been taught that in science textbooks since elementary school.
Yeah.
And even in the transition zone, the temperature is approximately 2,900 degrees Fahrenheit.
God damn.
That's like 1,600-ish, 1,900-ish degrees Celsius.
That is...
For our metric friends that may be listening.
Spicy.
It is very spicy. And obviously, like, we can't survive in those temperatures.
No.
And there's no current seismic proof of any inner caverns or hollow pockets in the Earth's mantle.
Okay.
Or core. So.
Gotcha. So are we kind of moving into where science comes in and just ruins all the fun?
Pretty much.
God damn it.
I told you I was going to bust it. Pretty much. And then regarding Admiral Byrd and like what he says he saw.
Yeah, what's his deal? All
of this came from his diary, which has been proven to not be real. So he was in Antarctica.
So he was real.
He is real, and he was in Antarctica. But while he was there, he almost died of carbon monoxide poisoning from a leaky stove.
Jesus Christ.
So he was probably fucked up.
Homie was tripping.
Homie was probably tripping balls. Like,
God. And he just writes this...
Or comes up with this story.
Batshit crazy carbon monoxide hallucination fueled story.
That's what happens when oxygen stops flowing to the brain.
Oh man. So where are we at now? Like,
I mean, we're back to it just being a myth of all time. Like, it's a myth that's been around for centuries. And nobody can really... I mean, again, kind of like what we talked about, like, this can take different avenues, like with the reptilian people,
there's tons of
with
different
the
ways
Nazis,
you can go with it.
I mean, oh God, the Atlanteans, we're just back to, it's a multicultural myth that no one's been able to figure out, but like, I mean, we've definitely dug into the earth and been like, how far can we dig? Like, dig, baby, dig. Like, we've done that, but I think we got 11 miles down, and it got so hot that it was like melting the drill. So like they couldn't go any further.
Just 11 miles?
Yes.
Huh.
Right. And so like...
Wait, so where did this claim of it coming from, the ringworm wood?
The ringwoodite?
That was allegedly like 500 miles down? Like what?
Yeah, that was, I think it was 430 miles down.
So that's totally not true.
No, that is.
Huh?
Yeah, that's where it originated from. There are things that are inside.
They didn't mine it from down there. They just determined that that's where it came from.
Right.
Oh, I was on a completely different wavelength with you through all of that.
Who in the fuck would be down 430 miles mining into the... We can't do that, bro.
I don't know. Well, why'd you think I got so conflicted when you told me that 11 miles down it wasn't working?
Well,
look, I asked questions and I got my answers.
Yes.
And now I'm back on track.
Now right. We're on the same page now. So that's good. But we're kind of just back to, this is a cool ass myth. I mean, wouldn't it be so cool if there was a hidden secret underground city and society that the government was hiding from us? Like, wouldn't that not be the coolest?
It would be. And also,
I would try and get there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to go there.
I would lead the expedition.
I want to hang out. They sound cool as hell.
With like, I mean, so here's like some of my thoughts is like, and maybe this is a thing, and I've like never been to the Himalayan mountains, but like, why aren't people in the Himalayan mountains and like Mammoth Cave and shit in Kentucky, and why aren't people cashing in on this? Like, let's go on a journey to Agartha day expedition, and you just like walk around aimlessly in caves and think you might find something, but like low-key, you could make a lot of money. Like, you could make money. That could be a tourist thing.
100%.
Like, maybe people are already doing this, but I couldn't find anything. But like, there's a business idea for you. I love coming up with business ideas.
Oh yeah.
So if you're listening to this, and
just think of all the rich white people that you could absolutely just take for a ride on that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, and that it would just be silly. And imagine like you get to take a selfie with I don't know, a Tibetan monk or something that's like guarding the, I don't know. I'm just saying.
Could be cool.
It could be cool. I don't know. But anyway, that is the city of Agartha.
I love it. I love the ones that are just way out there and just have fun with it. And I don't know, it's just way more fun to entertain this stuff.
I actually saw some like artist illustrative, like old illustrations, maps of Agartha.
Ooh, I love
stuff.
shit like
and
that.
And they were really cool. It had like a capital city, and I don't know why I imagine this. And this is probably just a product of like societal pop culture and stuff. But I imagine the city of Agartha being like from the Wizard of Oz. The gem city.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't know why I imagine it being like green and sparkly, but in my head I kind of do. Maybe it's because of the reptilians, because they're probably green
and sparkly.
And I would hope they're sparkly.
Yeah.
I like glitter.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, well, you're talking about the drawings and like the maps and stuff like that. I always get really fascinated anytime I see something that's very like fantastical or like science fiction or something like that from like the early 1900s or something like that, because I think we're so desensitized and saturated with science fiction and stuff like that. Like,
today, yeah.
Like the concept of that doesn't really sound like a very out there, or you know what I mean? Like if you were watching a movie and it was about like, oh, this society like under the surface of the earth or whatever, you're like, oh yeah, cool movie. But you think about that, someone went to like all this detail and put all this stuff together, like real or not, like for that time.
Right. Well, there's no way
so
they would have known.
Extensive, and I don't know. I eat that shit up.
There's no way, like in 1873, when this French book came out and stuff, like there's no way they would have known that we have like a liquid. Well, we have two cores. We have an outer core and an inner core, and they're both made up of iron and nickel, and one of them's hotter than the other one and spins, and that's what creates Earth's magnetic field.
It makes you wonder.
Like, how would anyone know that then?
And that's what makes me wonder. It's like, where did all of this
so that they
come
had
from?
to think,
they're not just pulling it out of thin air.
No,
like,
they kind of thought they brought it in. Instead of taking it out, like they said, okay, we're going in the earth. Like this is what's already here. So naturally, and then that could lead into which could be another episode, which I think Hollow Earth theory is just as bad as this one, but the flat Earth theory, because that started centuries ago as well.
Oh, I don't know if I even want to get near that one.
Oh, don't worry, I'll cover it. I plan on covering like some of the most batshit stuff. I need to get back into watching more like YouTube science stuff. I mean, you were with me. We went and saw Nosferatu, and it sparked me to like go back and watch more films made from the 1920s.
Oh yeah.
So like I recently actually watched this Swedish film called Haxan, H-A with an umlaut over top of the A, so it's like a long A sound, Haxan, which is like an occultist film from 1922 that covers like witches and demons and devils and hell, and
that sounds so cool.
It is so cool. It's actually on Tubi. I've been watching it on there, and it's I'm very surprised it got made so far.
Really?
It is very cool. I'm very into it. So
we gotta check that out.
If you like freaky movies from the 20s and things like that,
hell yeah,
you might want to check that one out if you're not creeped out by different demonic things. So anyway,
no, I'm curious. Yeah,
we're gonna have to look that one up too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this episode then, right?
I would say so. But anyway, so thanks for being here. If you made it this far, thank you. We are Two Halves of a Whole Idiot podcast, and we do have a Gmail. It is 2HOAWI podcast@gmail.com. And then obviously you found our YouTube if you're listening to this, because that's where we're at right now. Hopefully we can expand onto other platforms soon, but we're just going to start here. So
yeah. Thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate all of you. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will catch you next time.
Happy New Year's.